Hey, good morning. I just had some thoughts about, vanity. I wish I had a better way to start to start talking. I never know how to begin these. As a Christian, everything that we are doing w right now, we live in a body of death in a world which is passing away, and so much to us is easily written off because we know the prophetic, we know what's going on. Peter even says, seeing that all these things are passing away, what kind of people ought you to be? What what way should you live? That's not exactly what he says, but he said something to that effect. And the point is that we recognize, look at the futility, look at the vanity. But God subjected the creature, which is the new creation. He has subjected it to vanity in hope. Well, what is the hope? What is our hope? Christ in you, the hope of glory. As a kid, I remember my dad reading Pilgrim's Progress to me, and I remember some of the stories about the trolls and the some of the stuff carrying the weight up to the cross and letting it go, but I really remembered Vanity Fair. I always remembered Vanity Fair. And I didn't want to be a vain person. I didn't want to be subjected to vanity. And I tried for years to try and find a way to create purpose and to find substance in who I was. And it was all of the flesh. I didn't really understand that. I did understand that the gospel. I understood that Jesus died for my sins. I understood that he was buried and that he rose again on the third day. And I was looking for some purpose, but I was not. I was not finding it in the things of the world. I was very disinterested in school because I saw it as vanity. What does that matter? It's not. I always thought that school was just a big show. So there was some recognition of, what's the worth of it? And I felt like so much was just a Vanity Fair. Building what? Building myself up as a person for the eyes of the world. I didn't see any value in that. I just thought that there was something more. There was something intrinsic. There was something of value that was deeper than that. But I couldn't lay hold of it. I didn't know what it was. And even Solomon, has the wisdom given to him by God, wisdom beyond any other man, and yet it still ends in vanity. No matter how you slice it, there's nothing that you can do to remove yourself from this subjection to futility. And so what does God do? He injects himself. He presses himself into this. His own life, his own substance, his nature, his worth. He presses himself into it so that we would know and we would have a comfort of something beyond what Solomon could see, far beyond him, beyond his wisdom. Solomon said it's good. He finally came to the conclusion that it's good for man to work with his own hands and just eat and drink and enjoy his labor. But Solomon, you've been telling me that it's vanity. It's vanity. Even to enjoy. How can I find an answer? The answer is Christ, the Messiah, who brings himself into the creation. The seed, born of a woman. And the very nature of God is he subjects himself in the likeness of sinful flesh, so that through his subjecting himself, he might lift us up out of the vanity and bring himself through and into us and bring us through and into him, so that we would have his own very glory that doesn't fade away. And we could say nothing is vanity. Sure, this world system, and we're subjected to it in hope, but it is the very leverage of God to produce glory through something so simple as faith and hope and love, that God condescended himself, that he submitted himself even to the death on the cross. So it's not about finding purpose in what I can do with my hands or what I need to do, but it's about him he's forced his purpose and his very meaning of his own life into our lives and into our moment by moment. And in Ephesians, Paul says, that, am I in the right one? Oh, it's 4, chapter 4. He says, "This I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind, having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart." But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. Now I can set my mind on the things of the Spirit and come into agreement with the truth of God, that everything is working together for good. There's nothing vain. His word does not return in vain. And even the thoughts of my mind that would seem to be vain, I can say, that which was from the beginning has been working all of this together for good, for an eternal weight of glory, and not for vanity, and not simply to discard, because He is good. And it's not really about me, but it's the fact that He is using even what I would consider vanity to press Himself into the situation, into my life, into my childhood, into my adulthood. I had tried so hard for so many years to not be vain. I did not want to be a shallow person. And in the end, I found that no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the futility. I couldn't escape being subjected to this vanity of this world. I couldn't get out of Vanity Fair. And God did me one better, because He put Christ in me, the hope of glory, so that I wouldn't walk in the vanity of my mind, but it would turn out for good and for salvation. And that even the times when even my lowest moments, like when I was a senior in high school, I won the state championship for wrestling. And I remember right afterwards, I just felt the weight of vanity. And it was so crushing. It was such a crushing blow. I thought it would satisfy me. And I had enjoyed wrestling so much. But in that moment, I realized that no matter what, it was all subject to vanity. And then the Lord refreshed me maybe a week later. I was partying and all kinds of different stuff. And He did a huge work in my heart. And it was just the greatest refreshing. And I could not get enough of Jesus. I could not get enough of the Word. I could not get enough of everything that had to do with Him. And it was like the clouds were removed and I could see the sun and I could see the trees. It was just like brand new eyes to see everything. And I saw that it was good, and that everything had worked together for good, and that He had loved me from the beginning, and that He suffered the cross for me. And vanity was made subject to Him, because He is greater than all, and He had put Himself in me so that my mind wouldn't be walking after the way of the Gentiles, the other Gentiles, but instead it would be full of light and Him and His life and His goodness and His purpose and His will, to know the hope of our calling. And it was so meaningful. There's one that's greater than Solomon, and it's not vanity to do anything if Christ is in you. He's the hope of glory, and He is building His church for an eternal weight of glory. Have a good morning.